Everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal. This is the first live stream here to Rumble, and we'll be talking more about Rumble and the plans and what we're doing and different things like that soon enough. I will say that just looking at this very quickly here in the setup, I mean, looks good. I like the technical stuff. It all looks good here. We'll get into that, a lot more housekeeping later. This is just kind of I want to talk about this. Obviously, it's a show. We're talking about it. It's a video, if you will, a live stream, but it's also as much of a test as anything else. So we're just going to try to see what we're doing on this one. Let's get right into it. NPR accused of left-wing bias. So there's a lot of by an insider who is an editor at NPR. Or was a business editor, at least. Let me get the facts here. And first of all, I may make some mistakes here. Reserve the right to revise and extend. If I do miss anything, I do apologize for that. For those of you that don't know me on Rumble, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff. So I don't know where to start with. Maybe most notably right now, I'm a talk show host out of Tampa. Actually, Sarasota is where I reside. But and not too far from Rumble. Driven by I know someone over at Rumble and stuff like that. No big deal. Don't want to get into that. But there's a lot. We definitely want to do stuff with Rumble for a while because there's been so many. Conservative media is really kind of focusing on this whole Tampa, Sarasota area and stuff like that, and it's great to be over here. But anyway, I don't want to get too distracted with that right now. We'll have another discussion. I'll probably have Paul on, my brother and stuff, and he's big on Twitter, on X. We'll talk about all that, but I do want to get into this. I do want to get into this situation right here, which is this. I want to talk about this NPR thing. Okay, and we have a story here. Uri Berliner, okay, and this is on Barry Weiss's The Free Press, and it really it's been a big story this week. It's been a big story, and even President Trump has commented on this. Let's get right into it right now, and here we go. So let's look at this right here, and we're looking at this. This is The Free Press, okay, and this is definitely from Barry Weiss's Free Press. And we can see here Uri Berliner, senior business editor at NPR, and he's just saying that here's the headline, quote, "I've been at NPR for 25 years, and here's how we lost America's trust." And this is penned by him, so that's great. He was able to just say what he wants to say right here, and he talks about different things and how long he was there, and how he's left wing and all that type of stuff, and everything like this. But here's where we really want to get into this. Back in 2011, he talks about kind of the arc of this, okay? He says that about 26%, this is 2011, 26% of listeners, this is like 13 years ago, okay? 26% of listeners describe themselves as conservative, some as middle of the road, and 37% as liberals. Okay, great. In 2023, last year, so 12 years difference, and he's talking about, only 11%, quote, only 11% describe themselves as very or somewhat conservative. And 67% said they were very or somewhat liberal. Okay. And that you look at that sea change of what happened there. I mean, that is a massive, massive sea change in that organization. That is a massive sea change in that organization, in my opinion. And he's basically says straight up that, it's, quote, an open-minded spirit no longer exists within NPR. And he talks about why, Donald Trump, he talks about Donald Trump in the election of 2020, of 2016. He talks about that and how they were upset. And he said he voted, and this is someone that eagerly voted against Trump. Okay. So he talked about that. He also talked about, the Mueller report. He talked about the Russia collusion story. He talked about that and how they had Schiff on so many times. Adam Schiff. Okay, he talked about that. But then when the Mueller report came out, it said there was no quote, found no credible evidence of collusion. Then you didn't have that same energy of coverage of that point of it. And so he's like, okay, well, that happens That happens, sometimes that happens. Okay, and that's a big story. But then but then there was also like you can't just move on, right? You can't just move on. You actually have to like, deal with that. But he said it was even worse because it wasn't the only situation. It was also Hunter Biden's laptop. So we had that situation. It was also, the whole pandemic thing. And it goes on about these different things. And those are three massive stories, okay, for a long, long time. Those are massive, massive stories. And then he kind of details a lot of this type of stuff. And at the end here, if I can find it, he talked about kind of why this was and the George Floyd stuff and SAG-AFTRA and just the whole push on DEI and a lot of other things like that, and how it just became more and more of a focus on that. And in fact, I'll show this. There's another article that talks about like they've got this tool to track diversity and sourcing and different things like that. And so we'll get into that. And he just talks about all the different groups and blah blah blah. And let me see where I can find this here. Where did I find this here? But basically goes on to say somewhere in here, I've got to find this. It's a good article, longer article. But he basically goes on to say like, look, there's like no Republicans. There's zero Republicans, okay, in editorial positions. Zero Republicans. I mean, that's a big deal. Like there's like 87 Democrats and like zero Republicans in editorial position. I want to make sure I find that. And that's a huge deal, dude. That's a huge deal. And so it's like, okay, no, sometimes you might say, well, if this is MSNBC or something like that, okay, well, what's the big deal, John? Well, this is national public radio. This is publicly funded. And a lot of him is by supporters and stuff, and how much comes from public funding. And there's different reports on that and whatever, but it still doesn't matter. It's public funded. It's publicly funded. That's a really big deal. Okay. And is this what we expect out of public funding? And in fact, Trump has something to say about that for sure. And he's already come out and said something there. And, now people are just raising a lot of questions. I think I really want to find this very quickly here. And I think it's at the back end of this thing. So now people are asking, major questions, and there's been discussions and there's been back and forth. But I mean, a lot of, this is kind of a bellwether, if you will. This is kind of a canary in a coal mine, I think, in a lot of ways, because this now shows clearly what some have suspected on the right, but also just this is from someone who's worked at NPR for a long time, in my opinion. This is someone who's been there for quite some time, who's been an editor, who's saying that, like, look, they've lost their way. They've gone too far left for me. Is basically what it is. That this isn't balanced. This isn't even close to balance anymore, is my take on it. I mean, that's my personal opinion of what he's saying. And that's a big problem. And so you're seeing this with many different institutions and organizations, I believe. You've had talk about this with the whole Bud Light situation, the Target situation, Disney with different divisions in Disney, Star Wars, Marvel. A lot of people, Marvel Studios, a lot of people are saying, hey, what's going on here? This is a little too much. And it's now affecting the business and the audience and the customer base of these different organizations. So that's a problem. And so I think that at this point, people are really asking these questions and asking about, where we're going here and what the next step is and how do you pull back from this? Because it's just gone too far. And we've said this, and even, the late great Rush Limbaugh talked about this, and others have talked about this, that with the whole, you go so far left that eventually it kind of like, will sort of feed on itself, if you will, that it just gets too much. And, it's probably like that for either side, but definitely we've seen this happen with the left. And so that's a big problem. Now let's move on to some of the other stories. It's in here and I can't find it very rapidly while I'm still doing the show. I do apologize for that, but it is in, I did see this here. And so it's a big problem with this story. So now, where do we go from here? Let's switch this up real quick. Go back here. Okay. And let me see. Let's see here. Just trying to, where do we go from here? And what's the next step? I think now people are open. You're seeing a rapid change. And part of the issue with things like movie studios and academic institutions, and to some extent, really, media and big corporations as well, you have this institutional inertia, if you will. And so, decisions to greenlight movies and get the cast and get the funding, the production, all this is sometimes years in the making, right? And so decisions you made that maybe may have looked good 2 years ago, 3 years ago, or longer, or a year ago, some now all of a sudden look a little bit different. They look a little bit different. So, that starts to you got to be very, this is why people have always said for a long time. And I see it both ways, but hey, get business, get politics out of business because it's not good business, right? And so, you can get, especially when you have, uh you're getting farther and farther from where the mainstream is, it can be a dangerous business proposition. And so similarly, if you hire, a bunch of people that are, more activist, right, or oriented, if you will, then these things can start sort of snowballing over time. And I think that's what we're seeing right here with this kind of commentary, that it was just this momentum from different sectors, whether it was the SAG-AFTRA or different events, or the Donald Trump, President Trump election, things like that. And people are started to say, it affected this organization over time. So now let's look at this over here. Let's see. So this is going to be from Fox News, and it's covering this story. And let's see here, right there. Okay. NPR editor found registered Democrats outnumbered Republicans 87-0. That's crazy. 87-0. It's just, that is so wild when you think about that. I mean, he couldn't even find one. He couldn't even find one by registration. Now, yes, okay, the NPR is in DC, and DC is a little, more liberal, and National Public Radio is maybe more liberal. But I mean, you couldn't even find one, dude. Out of almost 100, getting close to 100. That's wild. That is so wild right there when you think about it. That's pretty shocking. And so then you think about, well, what are you dealing with then? What kind of organization? But it's beyond like this, the whole, who you vote for and stuff like that. It's just, it's become, a lot of these media companies now have become just unhinged in some respects. Now, is it a business model? Does that get you more views, or you focus more on, especially with cable and all the different outlets and streaming and on social media, and all, are you focused more on niche aspects and niche audiences? I don't know. I mean, there's different, I think there's a lot of different things going on here. But again, this is a public, organization. This is a public media company, right? And again, 87, here we go. Okay. Says voter registration records. This isn't like just a survey. This is voter registration records, right? 87 Democrats to 0 Republicans. That's wild, dude. And this is Fox News by David Rutz on April 9th, okay, on foxnews.com. So, that's a big deal. That's not a joke, dude. That's pretty serious when you look at that. And then you have to say to yourself, well, what are you going to do about that? Well, let me revise that. You have to, if this is public radio, and NPR, NPR is like, and he makes the point, and it's true. Like, NPR, particularly in like certain professional communities and big cities and even the business community, was seen as like really respected. Um, Not, no, I mean, not to, in my opinion, this is my opinion, but not to maybe not to the level like a CNBC or Bloomberg Radio or not talking like that. Different though, different. But I mean, I knew like a lot of heavyweight people that on their way to work or the law firm or whatever it might be, whatever it might be, if they're working at a university, they're rocking NPR. They're listening to fresh air, whatever it is, whatever it is, and now that vibe is the brand feels different, if you will. And I'll recall this. And how do I want to say that? How do I want to say this? I used to work as an intern at the CNN bureau in San Francisco. Okay, and let me stop sharing this screen here real quick. Okay, I used to work at the CNN bureau in San Francisco, and the vibe was now. How do I want to say this? That was back when Greg Lefebvre was running the bureau and everything like that. I did it when I was going to law school at UC Berkeley. And this is, first of all, it's all my personal opinion only and everything like that. I felt like there definitely was a point of view. Okay. In a liberal, and then the city was liberal. I felt like the newsroom was liberal. But they knew I was conservative. And maybe there'd be the little I can't remember. It's just so long ago, but it's like maybe there was this is just speculating, hypothetical, but maybe there's a little bit of ribbing or maybe a little bit of joshing around or maybe some rolling of the eyes or, part of my job was to kind of find stories in the, New York Times and LA Times and find stories. Hey, what about this? Oh, no, we're not going to cover that, whatever, and it was like, hey, go find me some stories on this. And again, there was more of I think, everyone's got their point of view. Everyone's got their, we're humans, right? So everyone's got their, no matter what, everyone's got their own thing. But, not surprisingly, maybe they were more liberal than I was. Okay. I don't think that's a super shock. But, more than anything, they were really, here's what I could say about that newsroom. First of all, it was great experience. I learned a lot, stuff like that. And also a lot of people that I was helping come in, like who was it? Roger McNamee. You had a lot of Don Lusk. You had a lot of people coming through there doing, hits for the business stuff for Silicon Valley. That was a lot of what we covered. So, I mean, you had the difference there is, yes, I felt like, in my opinion, that the newsroom was liberal, and yes, we were in a very liberal city, and yes, I was going to a law school that, well, I don't want to go into that. But they were professional. They knew I was conservative, and they treated me well. I got a great opportunity there, and we and even after I left the internships and stuff like that, like, they were professional, dude. They were the craft came first, the professionalism came first, and you had all kinds of people. Again, Greg Lefebvre, Don Knapp, Rusty Dornan. You had all kinds of people in that bureau, and why can't NPR be more like that? No one's saying NPR, we expect NPR to be like Rumble. Why not though? You know what I mean? Like, but what I mean, but anyway, it's a public broadcasting platform should be at least somewhat reflective. I mean, we're not here on Rumble and stuff like that, and YouTube, and we're also streaming to X and Facebook. But, we're not, and I'm not advocating for any kind of like, accounting and anything like that. But I'm just saying, like it shouldn't be like completely, far left. Like, there should be some relationship to, mainstream views. It should be, you should be able to have some diversity of viewpoints, if you will. And obviously you could think that there's been some serious and strong reaction. There's been some strong reaction. And as you'd expect, and President Trump, no less than President Trump, actually, on Truth Social, had something to say, and let's go to that right here. So if we look at that, what President Trump is, I mean, and this is a day ago, I mean, came out and just excoriated this. No more funding for NPR. A total scam. Editor said they have no Republicans and it's only used to quote unquote damage Trump. They are a liberal disinformation machine, not $1. Wow. I mean, Trump, Trump definitely pulls no punches, no doubt about that. And that is Trump, what he had to say on True Social, and definitely people are definitely looking at that very, very closely and very strongly. On the Republican side, again, then people talked about, and this is a different conversation, but people talk about, who's influential, who's the most influential. And I think Dave Rubin was on Patrick Bet-David's podcast, like, oh, Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson are right up there. Well, I mean, look, and I think a lot of people have disputed that. I've disputed that. I think that obviously Trump's number one. Then you probably have Tucker and Rogan, but Rogan's different. I mean, on the conservative, I'm talking about on the Republican side. Rogan has a bigger audience, but he talks about a lot of different things. But so I would kind of let's put him aside for a second. I think it's going to be Trump. Then you have Tucker. Then maybe it's Rogan and Elon Musk. I mean, obviously they're huge names and they have even bigger followings, but they don't only talk about political stuff. They talk about a lot of different stuff. And then after that, you've got a whole array of different folks that you can talk about. Is it Russell Brand? Is it a Patrick Bet-David? I mean, there's a huge list. Officer Tatum. Megyn Kelly, Shapiro. I mean, Candace. And there's just so many different ones that you can talk about at that point. And once you get to that level, but Trump is definitely numero uno, particularly with people on the political side, right? I mean, because he is the Republican nominee. He's going to be officially going to be the Republican nominee. He's locked up the delegates. He's officially going to be the Republican nominee. And obviously, you have to listen, if you're on the Republican side, to what Trump is saying. So that's a big, big deal. That's a big deal. The last screen I want to share with you right here and talk about is, let's talk about this. And I don't want to belabor the point too much, but if you look at this, this is from I think an article in 2021 by Angela Fu in Pointer, and talks about a new tool allows NPR to track source diversity in real time. Okay. And basically that NPR, decided to, decided to track demographics for all its sources in 2020. I mean, like, that's pretty wild. Okay. That's pretty wild. If that's what's important. I mean, no, hold on. Let me slow down. I think I see it both ways, right? And try to be as fair as I can. I try to be fair. I really try to be fair. I mean, we all have our points of views, and I have my point of view, but I try to be fair. I think that a big danger, and you can see this, like if you're in the news business and stuff, or have a show or whatever, sometimes it becomes a real echo chamber. They talk about that. That's a real thing, an echo chamber. If you're on deadlines, a story breaks. Hey, here's my list of 3, 5, 7 people. I know here's the 2 people that are experts on this. And you're going to go to people that people that will come on, people that are maybe good on the air. It depends on if do you need a quote, do you need a soundbite, do you need whatever you need, right? But also, if someone's been doing the circuit and they're out there, it's a good get, you know what I mean, or whatever, or they haven't been doing anything. You're not even getting exclusive. I mean, so there's that kind of thinking that goes into it. So in that respect, sometimes it's only a really small group of people that are experts that get on TV. So sometimes there is a real limit. There's limited diversity, if you will, of, again, that's more of a viewpoint thing, honestly. in my opinion. Um, Sometimes in those things, just because of the nature of the news business, the limitation even now of outlets and just deadlines and all those types of things. So I do think trying to get different voices and different perspectives. And again, it's to me, it's not about. But okay, I'll come right back to that in a second. But just let's hold that thought, if you will. But on the other hand, here it's like when you're like tracking in real time, it really. Are we like what are we doing here? Are we doing exact counts? Are we like this is like I don't know. Like it feels a little bit too way too far in the other on the other end, and I think it really comes down to so I think it's always so on the one hand, I think it's always good to make sure that well, let me put it this way. To try to make sense of this as clear as I can. It's about the story. You have to get the story. You have to get the story. And some people, oh, there's no two sides to this one. And there's a lot of that, talking about there's no two sides to this one. It's like, dude, like we teach you in law school, so there's two sides to everything, right? I mean, you've got to be able to argue, different viewpoints. In other words, it's not just that there's just two sides. There might be 3 sides, 5 sides, 20. I mean, who knows? Different perspectives. You have to be able to see things from different because you let the different arguments sort of compete, if you will, to try to get to the truth. The North Star, if you will, should be what is the truth of this story? How do we tell this story as accurately as possible? And often almost always that takes different viewpoints, right? So it is good to have diversity of viewpoints and stuff like that. And sometimes, or diverse experiences or, diversity in reporting them, that definitely can be a very useful thing. But the focus has to be on accurately telling that story. Not on like, we have to, pro Trump, against Trump, point of view, box, checking boxes, making sure in real time. Wait, we've overloaded on this. Now we got to go over here. I mean, again, so that's the problem. It's like, okay, let's say that like for whatever reason your numbers are out of skew of whatever you want it to be. Now you've got a story that if you, I don't know, I don't even know what the right. I'm not even going to speculate. I don't want to get anything out there, definitely on tape. But I mean, you may have it, depending on what the stories is and what news breaks, you don't know what's going to break next. You don't know what you're going to talk about next. So how do you know that it's that the diversity for this next story should be whatever? You don't know what that story is going to what it is. I mean, if I had a story, if we had cameras on Mars and the story was what happened in Mars, I guess I would be talking to Martians. I don't know that I would be talking to someone from the North Pole here. Right? I mean, so anyway, it's just this is the problem with all this. It's the wrong focus. The focus needs to be on the stories. The focus needs to be on being accurate. And if you've now gotten to a place where you've had this precipitous drop off of, as the stories talks about, the moderates, even some moderate Democrats and independents, and definitely on conservatives on national public radio, that's a problem. And this is, again, this is coming from a conservative standpoint, but this was a brand that was known for great audio, for a lot of people, a lot of professionals, must listening, must be, a must tune in type of situation, particularly on the morning commute to work. So it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I do think things will correct, but I also take where I also understand where Trump's coming from, and that there has to be some kind of response, at least rhetorically, if not politically, or something like that. Because I mean, what's happened now is that you've had a situation where too many people have been too quiet for too long. and whether it's in Hollywood, media, academics, there's so many places and spaces where, conservatives, liberal Republicans, independents, minor Democrats have been just been pushed out. But I don't think it's I you know I'm an optimist. I like to see things in a positive way. I don't think it's I don't think this is a negative story. In some ways, it's I think the elements of it are negative, right? I mean, in my opinion, in my point of view, my personal opinion. But I think that you've got this editor here, Uri Berliner, that was able to go onto Barry Rice's Free Press and tell this story, and people are talking about it, is a good thing. I think the fact that people can talk about this now, I think this is a good thing. So, hopefully we'll get more of this, and we'll see where it goes from here. But anyway, yeah. So pretty interesting. First live stream. Looking forward to doing more here on Rumble. Technically, it looks pretty cool. Looking forward to doing more of these and trying to make it all better and as we go. So anyway, I'm a little tired. It's all good. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for watching. I am John D. Villarreal. I will see you next time. As our first live stream of Rumble, but definitely will not be the last. And we're looking forward to doing more. Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.